At the birthday party, my fiancé casually peeled a bowl of shrimp for his ex-girlfriend. Everyone held their breath and looked at me. After a slight pause, I put down my chopsticks. Staring at the people around me with a puzzled look, I said, "Why is everyone staring at me? Since when did humans evolve to be able to eat just by breathing?" On my 28th birthday, my fiancé Miles organized a gathering for me. Someone joked in the group chat asking if we were about to get engaged. I looked at the message, feeling a bit dazed. From graduation until now, we have been together for 6 or 7 years, and it really is time to take this relationship to the next level. I remembered that last month he asked me what kind of flowers I liked. It seemed there was some kind of sign after all. So today I deliberately went home early, took a shower, changed clothes, and even put on full makeup. If I am going to be proposed to today, I must be the most beautiful woman in the room. When I arrived, most of my friends were already there. At the entrance stood a whole wall of roses, and the entire venue was decorated in the most luxurious way. It's not the style I like, but who wouldn't like someone to put in so much effort to please you? Everyone cast envious glances. I have to say, Miles really understands romance. Such a huge wall of roses, even I, a grown man, was moved by it. I've been with Miles for 6 years, and every birthday has been prepared by him. Actually, before I started dating him, I never made a big deal out of my birthdays either. At most, I would just invite good friends over for a simple meal to celebrate. But he seems to have an indescribable passion and dedication for organizing birthday parties. Every year on our birthdays, he would throw a big party and invite a bunch of people. I could even call out the names of some people I barely knew. Miles is really unoriginal, Sophie complained softly. Every year it's the same rose wall. You say he didn't put any thought into it, but such a big flower wall takes time to prepare. You say he did put thought into it, but it's always the same few things every year. It's really hard to judge. Listening to my best friend's words, my initial excitement gradually calmed down. Yeah, every year I go through this cycle of brief highs and prolonged lows. I really don't learn my lesson. But as the saying goes, you don't hit a smiling face when you reach out. Since Miles personally arranged this birthday party, as his fiancé, I naturally can't afford to embarrass him too much. Although I was sure he wasn't proposing to me today either, I still wore a polite smile and walked over to Miles. I called out to Miles, then noticed the smile on his face stiffen for a moment before he recovered. "You came." Miles walked over and tightly grabbed my hand. His palm was sweating, and I knew he must be hiding something from me. After all, he wasn't good at lying. I subtly pulled my hand away, looked at the somewhat guilty man, and smiled slightly. "Let's go. Since there's a gathering, why stand at the door watching? Everyone's inside eating." Only then did Miles seem to remember what today was about, and he started greeting the guests and leading them inside to eat. Everyone then walked inside together. As soon as I entered the private room, I immediately saw a strange girl sitting in the main seat. According to the order of the main character of today's banquet, that seat should have been mine. But even if I am not the main character of this banquet today, I am qualified to sit in the main seat. Because I am the daughter of the Zhao Group, and the Zhao Group is the largest enterprise in Haicheng City. Everyone who came today without exception relies on our family. Although our family hasn't been rooted in Haicheng City as long as the Jing family, we have bet correctly on several major projects, kept up with development trends, and haven't been kicked off the table. Now, in terms of scale and capital chain, we are much stronger than these so-called families. If I want to stay alive, keep making money, and maintain my current lifestyle, naturally, following the right people is the most important. So, even if they are unwilling in their hearts, these people will outwardly treat me as their leader. The situation was sudden. The crowd that had just been discussing the topic of marriage proposals suddenly fell silent. After all, I haven't been treated like this for many years. Close by was Miles' childhood friend Peter, who exclaimed, "Wow." I scanned the entire room, and from the expression on Miles' friend's face, I could tell that this girl was known to all of Miles' friends. I turned to look at Miles. Good, he looked guilty. Then the woman sitting in my seat must be Lena, the ex-girlfriend Miles couldn't forget. They've been broken up for 6 or 7 years, yet they can still reconnect, which is quite generous. Miss Lena, it seems you are sitting in the wrong seat. I kindly reminded her, your seat should be over there. As I spoke, I pointed to another table, where all the guests were invited by Miles, strange people I didn't know at all. Lena stood up apologetically and greeted me, sorry, I didn't know this was your seat. She even showed a tearful expression, as if I had bullied her. Naturally, I didn't respond to her. After all, considering our statuses, arguing with her would only make me lose face. Of course, you might say this is a bit pretentious. But I am the main character today. If I don't act appropriately in my own event, should I go to someone else's event and act arrogantly like her? That would be really ill-mannered. I didn't speak, so naturally no one dared to respond to her. Without any response, her one-woman show couldn't continue, and once it stopped, the atmosphere instantly became very awkward. Lena seemed to have some self-awareness, seeing that no one was paying attention to her, her face flushed red, and she gave up her seat. I, of course, didn't hesitate and sat down directly, waiting for the food to be served. After all, this restaurant really is delicious. Just as I took out my phone, I heard a sharp intake of breath. I looked up and saw that Miles had pulled Lena over and made her sit in the seat to his left. Oh? How interesting. I curled the corner of my mouth. It looks like there's going to be a good show today. Although I am one of the main characters, watching the show is always quite enjoyable. When others saw that I didn't speak up, they didn't do much either, but their expressions towards Miles changed a lot. I looked at Miles, who was still looking down, carefully adjusting Lena's dress hem. He's already danced in front of me. It seems it's time to replace this disobedient fiancé. The smell in this hotel is quite nice, but the downside is the large number of guests, so the food is served a bit slowly. After Miles did that in front of everyone, my attitude also turned much colder, and the atmosphere in the entire room became extremely awkward. After all, besides friends, most of the people who came today are those who rely on our family's livelihood. They pushed and squeezed their way to attend this boring gathering just to maintain a good relationship with me, so their own companies can survive better. Now that this has caused such a commotion, they really hate Miles to death. They are all waiting for me to speak up, so the accumulated emotions will have an excuse to be released. Unfortunately, I am naturally not the type to be a scapegoat for others. I still prefer to handle my own matters by myself. Soon, someone, fueled by alcohol, stood up and shouted loudly, "Miles, your fiancé is sitting right next to you. What are you doing being so ambiguous with this woman? You keep saying this is a surprise for your baby, so who the hell is the baby today?" "Which baby?" I raised my eyebrows. "Oh, a surprise?" After dating for so many years, Miles has always called me by my name. I have no objection to this. After all, in the adult world, messing around with so much love and affection is really meaningless. This person spoke so indignantly, which means Miles has said baby more than once in front of them. And as everyone knows, I am Miles' fiancé, so they naturally assumed that the baby was me, but they didn't expect it to be someone else. I looked up and met Lena's gaze. She had already put on that calm and composed look, with tears hanging at the corners of her eyes. She really looked quite beautiful. Even I, a woman alone, was moved. I originally wanted to see what kind of earth-shattering secret the person who just spoke could reveal, but unexpectedly, the dishes were served at that moment. The farce abruptly ended, and Sophie and I exchanged a glance, both seeing disappointment in each other's eyes. Sigh, bestie, what a pity, it didn't escalate after all. I have a natural weakness for delicious food, so after a brief moment of disappointment, I wholeheartedly dived into the feast. Just as I was a bit regretful that the perfectly good chicken leg was chopped up and I couldn't hold and gnaw on it whole, I noticed Sophie gasped sharply. I looked up with a puzzled expression and noticed that everyone's faces looked a bit strange. I turned my head to look and then realized that Miles, who is known for his cleanliness obsession, was peeling shrimp at a slow and steady pace. In just a short while, he had already peeled a small bowlful. Seeing everyone's sympathetic looks, I knew that bowl of shrimp wouldn't come to me, so I chose to continue showing off my meal. Because I am allergic to seafood. Many people know this, so whenever there's a gathering with me, there won't be such things on the table. But Lena just happens to really like eating this. As for how I knew, after all, this man had just been very disrespectful to me. Sure enough, after Miles finished peeling the shrimp, he took off his plastic gloves and naturally placed the bowl in front of Lena. The people around gasped in shock. I just find this group of people so annoying, like ghosts. Facing such delicious food, they just keep sniffing around. What's wrong with quietly taking a few bites? It really makes me lose my appetite. I slammed down my chopsticks heavily and turned my head to see Miles' hand, which he hadn't yet withdrawn. A flicker of panic flashed in his eyes before he hurriedly pulled his hand back. I turned to look at the crowd staring at me and said boredly, "Why are you all staring at me? Can staring at me fill your stomach?" Seeing that they still didn't move, I shouted in frustration, "Why are you still staring at me? The food will get cold and won't taste good." For a moment, everyone was unsure of what I was thinking. Someone nearby frowned and was about to stand up to mediate, but the one who stood up first was Lena. She carried an air of complete control, personally bringing the bowl of shrimp to my side, and even forced a smile while saying, "Miles just did it casually, don't be mad." How clever she was, with a simple action and a brief sentence, she completely cleared herself of blame. It was as if I was the one being unreasonable now. Sure enough, Miles wiped his hands with a wet towel, looked at me, and his tone was indescribably cold. "Irene, what kind of mood are you throwing?" Hearing this, I frowned. What did he mean by me throwing a mood? Miles and I were college classmates. Saying classmates, actually the two of us only sat in the same classroom attending classes. It wasn't until my junior year that Miles and I represented the school together in a competition that I exchanged WeChat with him. But that was all there was to it. My social circle has always been small, with only a few close friends, mostly people I've grown up with. Miles, on the other hand, was quite the opposite. Since he started school, he was always surrounded by many people, friends as well as those who needed to flatter him. Because of this, I was a bit surprised to meet him during a blind date. After all, someone who is usually the center of attention shouldn't be short of women, right? It was this blind date that brought us together, and as we met more often, the result was that he proposed to me. Of course, I didn't hesitate to say yes. After all, one big reason I went on blind dates was because I wanted to find a reliable father for my child. And not only is Miles an acquaintance, but his face is indeed handsome, very suitable to be the father of my child. And this conversation has continued until now. However, shortly after being with me, the Jing family began to suffer a complete defeat, or perhaps they had already lost long ago, but at first, they were able to hide it. After targeting me as their scapegoat, their whole family stopped even pretending. But one thing is certain, from that day on, the status between the two of us began to reverse, and Miles' attitude also changed somewhat. The main manifestation is that every year at the birthday party, he invites a group of people I don't know and sets up a rose wall to disgust me. I don't even know who exactly likes this rose wall. Now, looking at the sullen-faced Miles and the smug-looking Lena in front of me, I have a clear idea. I slowly picked up a tissue to wipe my mouth, reapplied my lipstick, and then looked at Miles. "Sorry, what were you just saying?" I was eating and didn't hear clearly. Saying this, I put my hand to my ear, as if I really hadn't heard clearly, and continued, "Could you please say it again, Mr. Miles?" This is the sign before I get angry. Everyone who has worked with me knows this. So several people at the table had already put down their bowls and chopsticks, consciously leaving their seats and leaving this place to me. Miles' tone softened a bit, but he still said firmly, "Irene, I just gave the shrimp to the wrong person. What's the problem? Can't we talk about it at home? Do you have to make a scene here?" Huh. I chuckled lightly, feeling that this person was indeed a bit thick-skinned. "Bella," I called out, and a girl raised her hand and came over to me, softly saying, "Sister Irene, I'm here." She is my assistant, a girl who always has a smile on her face, very cute. Every time I see her, I feel my heart melt, so I decided to keep her and let her learn from me. I pinched her chubby little face and said, "Don't you like eating shrimp? Take this and eat it, it's already peeled, so don't waste it." "Okay." Bella smiled with her eyes curved like a crescent moon, took the big bowl of shrimp from my hand, and happily said, "Bella promises to complete the task." Looking at Bella, my mood instantly improved a lot. Maybe it was because I gave this bowl of shrimp to someone else, which triggered Miles' fragile heart, so he stood up from his chair and shouted loudly, "Irene, what do you mean?" I was a bit annoyed by this emotionally unstable person yelling at me, and I became much more serious. "Miles, am I giving you too much face?" I just glanced at him lightly, and Miles' momentum weakened, his whole back slumped. I was sitting while he was standing, but now I could overpower him because I had the confidence. The atmosphere instantly froze. After a long while, I heard Miles mutter softly, "I'm sorry." "Say it louder, I didn't hear you." "Sorry." Miles said loudly, but his eyes looked like he wanted to devour me. I glanced at him indifferently. "What are you shouting for? Trying to show everyone you have a loud voice?" Upon hearing this, Miles's expression became interesting. I didn't look at him again, while Lena was subdued by Sophie in one move. "Really putting you two wild lovebirds in a tough spot." I looked at them, "But you absolutely should not have used my money to satisfy your own needs. Don't blame me for not warning you, I'm not some charitable saint, stolen money from me must be paid back." After speaking, I gently patted Miles' face and said with a smile, "As for you, go back and ask your parents what your company's name is now." Saying this, I restrained my smile. It's good to sober up a bit, and also think about how your family became so broken, and what it is that's barely keeping you alive. The person who was just so arrogant turned pale instantly upon hearing these words and was stunned for a long time. The waiter quickly came over after hearing the commotion. Seeing the somewhat helpless young girl, I didn't want to make things difficult for her. "I think with your authority, you can't resolve this matter. Go call your manager." Judging by the situation, it was clear that she, as a part-timer, really couldn't handle it, so she politely said, "Please wait a moment, I will notify the manager right away." "Okay." I nodded and began to lean back in the chair to rest. "If you want to use my money to please Santa and her friends, that just doesn't make sense." The manager quickly came over. "Miss Irene, sorry, the store is a bit busy." The manager said breathlessly, "May I ask what you need?" I looked at the manager with a smiling face and didn't make things difficult for him, just honestly asked, "Is today's bill charged under my name? Because I often come here to eat, I specially got their membership card, so every time I come, it can be directly charged to my name. It has been managed by a dedicated person all this time, but after today's incident, I am starting to doubt how much money I have actually spent." "Miss Irene, when Mr. Miles called earlier, this is what he instructed." The manager wiped his sweat and said somewhat ingratiatingly, "We thought since he is your fiancé and said he wanted to prepare a birthday surprise for you, we didn't call you." I nodded and said, "Since it was ordered in my name, my dietary restrictions should have been taken into account. I should have specifically mentioned since the day I got the membership card that I'm allergic to seafood. Since today's bill is under my name, the dishes on the table should also suit my taste. So why is there shrimp?" The manager was shocked upon hearing this, glanced at the person behind him, who immediately said, "Please forgive Miss Irene, this was specially instructed by Mr. Miles, and he said there were distinguished guests to entertain." The manager hurriedly apologized, "Miss Irene, please don't be angry. It's all our fault for poor hospitality. Consider this meal on me, how about that?" "No need." I shook my head, I can still afford a farewell meal. But I do have things to attend to. The manager was also a sharp person. After hearing what I said, he immediately said, "You say it, as long as it is within my ability, I will definitely help you get it done. All the consumption records can be checked, right?" I asked, "I need all the consumption records now." Can do, can do." The manager nodded repeatedly, "It's just that your card has been used quite a few times in our store, so it might take a little longer to provide them to you. Is that okay?" That's fine. I didn't want to make things difficult for these innocent people, so I nodded. After it's done, call this number. My lawyer will contact you. The manager looked at me, understood what I needed, and smiled, assuring me, I will definitely make you satisfied. Hearing the manager's affirmative reply, I smiled contentedly, then I'll wait for your good news. After speaking, I patted his shoulder, called Sophie and Bella, and left. After leaving the hotel, the three of us went to the area near Haicheng University. There is a food street there, and we ate quite a lot. Dad called on our way back, and along with the call came a big red envelope. They had been traveling recently and originally planned to return on my birthday, but I ended up refusing. After all, it hasn't been easy for the two of them to raise me this far. Now that they finally have time to go out and see the world, I don't want to disturb their enjoyment. After talking to Dad for a bit, the phone was handed over to Mom. Perhaps sensing my low mood, Mom sent a video after hanging up. The moment I answered the call and saw my mom's face, I felt terrible. Mom. Were you wronged? Yes. Then call back. Your dad and I have worked hard all our lives not for you to go out and be wronged. Mom gently smoothed the mask on her face. If it really doesn't work out, we'll just find a professional manager. Anyway, when the time comes, we won't see anything clearly, so don't let yourself suffer while you're still alive. I responded softly, feeling a bit sad. Seeing this, Bella came over from the back seat. Auntie, I'm Bella. Oh, it's Bella. Let me see. Oh, even cuter. I handed the phone to Bella, and listening to their cheerful voices, my mood improved a lot. Have you decided? Sophie glanced at me sideways, then complained, I've been telling you to kick that scumbag out. Look how long we've been out, and he hasn't called once. He's definitely out fooling around with that woman. It makes me so mad. How dare he treat you like this? Tomorrow, I'm going to have my brother go beat him up. Calm down, I said with a pleading look, our brother is now a public servant. He can't take revenge for us like when we were kids anymore, Sophie sneered, then what's the use of him, ha ha ha, I laughed, you can't just kick him out of the family, sigh, Sophie sighed, anyway, you just want a child, it doesn't matter who you have it with. If it really doesn't work out, just find my brother. After all, he doesn't smoke or drink, so his health must be great, pft. I spat out a mouthful of water. Girlfriend, your words are a bit too blunt. Just as I was blushing from being teased, a voice came from the back row, that's also an option. Victor has grown up with us, so he knows all the ins and outs, Mom, I immediately interrupted my mother's train of thought, please don't join in the fun, after saying that, I took my phone and hung up the video call. After all the commotion, by the time I got home, I was feeling much better. In August, the heat in Haicheng was so intense that even the cicadas chirping carried a hint of fatigue. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window on the top floor of the group, my fingertips unconsciously stroking the coffee cup. When my phone vibrated, the 3 characters lawyer Zhang on the screen brought me back to my senses. It had been 3 days since the last birthday party, and during these 3 days, my heavy blow had not yet landed, but the Jing family was already on the brink of collapse. Miss Irene, we found something. Lawyer Zhang's voice was somewhat excited. Miles has made 427 hotel transactions in your name over the past 5 years, 305 of which involved Lena. The most interesting part is, he paused, last Wednesday's transaction record shows they booked the presidential suite. We also found that Miss Lena's birthday is on the same day as yours, and those strangers who attended your birthday party are all relatives of Miss Lena. Moreover, after each event, Miles would send various gifts to them in your name, and the person responsible for your related finances has been colluding with Miles, gaining quite a few benefits in the process. The glass curtain wall reflected my suddenly tightened fingers, my nails striking the rim of the cup with a crisp sound. It turned out that those rose walls were never for me. No wonder this person has always been obsessed with holding a birthday party. It was all about freeloading, using my money to curry favors. What a capable guy he is. I'm not very interested in these matters. I looked at the hurried crowd downstairs. Since everything has been completely entrusted to you, what I want to know most is when I can get all my money back. It might take some effort, came the reply. Lawyer Zhang, I'm paying you this much in legal fees not to hear this kind of talk. I was not satisfied with this answer at all. The other party probably sensed my dissatisfaction and immediately assured me, Miss Irene, rest assured, we will definitely recover all this money for you. As soon as the call ended, Sophie stormed in, her high heels thudding on the carpet. Found out. Lena was Miles' high school classmate. Back then, she disliked his family for nearly going bankrupt, so after graduation, she hooked up with a second-generation rich kid. But 2 years later, he went bankrupt too, and she came back to mooch off Miles again. The two hit it off immediately and got involved. She threw over a stack of documents. What's worse, this woman just lost $8 million in Macau last month. I looked at the photo of Lena in the casino, wild and frenzied, and suddenly recalled her pitiful appearance at the birthday party. It turned out that the trembling fingers back then were not from grievance, but possibly spasms from a gambling addiction. What's the situation with the Zhang family now? I asked. The very first day their funding chain was cut off, their whole family completely collapsed. Sophie smiled like a satisfied cat. Just got the news, Miles' dad was hospitalized this morning due to high blood pressure. I raised the cold coffee and drank it all in one go, the bitterness spreading on my tongue. 7 years ago, Miles said he liked the way I focused when drinking coffee the most. Now that I think about it, what he was really focused on was probably the money in my hand. My phone suddenly vibrated wildly, 37 missed calls all from Miles. Sophie, sharp-eyed, saw the caller ID on the phone and said with a look of bitter disappointment, "You wouldn't still have feelings for him, would you?" I put down the coffee, frowning as I said, "If you knew how much money he spent for me over these years, you'd understand that your words hurt the kid far more than just a slap." Just as Sophie was about to scold me, my phone rang again. I originally thought it was Miles, but it turned out to be Lena asking to meet up. Sophie and I exchanged a glance, both seeing excitement in each other's eyes. Could it be that the plot of the novel is about to begin? When Lena saw Sophie and me appear at the same time, her expression stiffened. Miss Irene really has a good mood, even bringing a, when going out. Before Sophie could react, I slapped her hard. "I've already spared you once, you little homewrecker, yet you still come looking for a beating. You're really shameless." "What? Didn't my lawyer notify you to pay me back? Don't forget, the clothes you're wearing today were bought by me. If you piss me off, I'll strip you of your clothes right now and let you have your moment of shame." As soon as I said this, the waiter who was about to come help stopped in his tracks. In this society, no one can sympathize with a mistress, let alone one who knowingly plays the role. Seeing the hesitant waitress, I nodded at her. "Don't worry, we will have a calm and peaceful conversation from now on." Perhaps because I was truly sincere, the waitress left with relief. Lena covered her face, looking at me with a face full of resentment, but in the end, she didn't dare to do anything more. After all, the slap I just gave her was not light. Seeing her calm down, I nodded with satisfaction. "Speak, what did you call me out for?" Lena gritted her teeth and threw a test report from her bag. "I'm pregnant, it's Miles." I looked confused. "So what if you're pregnant?" "It's not mine." "Are you calling me out just to hear me say congratulations?" Upon hearing this, Lena suddenly became proud. "Miles already told me that your health is poor and you can't get pregnant. Anyway, this child is also Miles' seed. As long as you agree to give me 8 million, once I give birth, this child will be yours." The more I heard these words, the more alarmed I became. I quickly interrupted this legal ignoramus. "Sister, you're at least a college student. Let me remind you that buying and selling children is illegal. If you want to live off public funds, just do it quietly and don't drag me into it." Upon hearing this, Lena panicked, thinking I found the amount too high, and immediately changed her words. 5 million is fine." "Wait a moment." I raised my hand to interrupt her, quickly called the waiter, paid the bill, and with Sophie, we slipped away quickly from this place full of trouble. That was close, just came out to watch the excitement and almost ended up in jail. When people are unlucky, they always run into their enemies. For example, just now, Sophie and I had just finished face-to-face cricket fighting with that idiot Lena, and when we looked up, we saw Miles with a sinister expression. Miles stood at the entrance of the cafe, his face so sullen it seemed to drip water. His suit was wrinkled like pickled vegetables, his tie crooked, and his eyes bloodshot, looking like a trapped beast with no way out, nothing like the radiant figure he was just a few days ago. Irene. He rushed over in 3 quick steps, grabbing my wrist. Are you trying to finish me off completely? Sophie immediately stepped in front of me. Miles, what are you crazy about? The customers in the cafe all turned to look. I patted Sophie's shoulder, signaling her to step aside, then calmly looked at the once charming man in front of me. Mr. Miles, please mind the occasion. Occasion? Miles sneered, his voice low and suppressed. When you cut off my funding, did you mind the occasion? When you had someone check my accounts, did you mind the occasion? Now my dad is lying in the ICU, are you satisfied? I deliberately tidied my cuffs. Miles, you have secretly used funds under my name 427 times, of which 305 times were for Lena. Last Wednesday, you even booked the presidential suite, using my membership card. I looked up at him. Do you want me to continue? Miles's face turned from red to white, but the force in his hands did not lessen. Instead, it increased. I will pay back that money. But do you know, just because of your words, now no one in Haicheng dares to cooperate with the Jing family. Then they are smart. I pulled my hand back forcefully, knowing who to mess with and who not to. Miles's eyes suddenly became dark and fierce. Irene, don't push me. I was too familiar with that look. It was the madness of a gambler who has lost his last chip. I quietly gave Sophie a look, and she understood immediately, stepping aside to make a phone call. Miles, I slowed my tone, it's not too late to stop now. Stop? He laughed nervously. I can't even afford the hospital deposit now, how can I pay back? He suddenly lowered his voice, but I know you have a way. With Lin Group's huge cash flow, a mere few tens of millions is nothing to you, right? A chill ran through my heart. This was not a negotiation, it was a threat. As the saying goes, a person shouldn't fall in the same place twice, nor should they soften their heart twice for the same person. Thinking this, I moved my leg, stepped back, and then kicked Miles squarely in the chest. Miles, caught off guard, was kicked directly to the ground with a bang, and a small knife fell out of his pocket. He clutched his chest, lay on the ground, his face pale, clearly seriously injured. Sophie laughed out loud beside me. Irene, your leg technique is impressive. I swung my leg calmly and said, all these years of tuition fees were not paid in vain. Miles struggled to get up, staring at me with a sinister look. Irene, you dare hit me? So what if I hit you? I sneered, you stole my money to support your mistress, and you still expect me to reason with you? His face turned ashen, and just as he was about to rush over, the mall security came and directly stopped him. Sir, please calm down, the security said sternly. Miles gritted his teeth and said, do you know who I am? How dare you stop me? The security guard said expressionlessly, no matter who you are, causing trouble in a public place gives us the right to ask you to leave. I was too lazy to look at him anymore and directly said to the security guard, sorry to trouble you, this gentleman's emotions are a bit unstable and he might need to calm down. After saying that, I left with Sophie. I don't know if they were desperate, but Miles and Lena actually started a live stream online. The content of the stream was nothing more than trying to smear me, attempting to portray me as a homewrecker who ruins others' relationships to gain public sympathy, hoping to turn this situation around through public opinion. Gossip about rich people, especially regarding relationships, is really captivating. After all, I often use a secondary account to listen to those paparazzi live streams about gossip. But while the imagination is beautiful, reality is painful. Ever since I had a falling out with Miles, my team has been on high alert. As soon as they started the live stream, my people reacted immediately and took control of the live room's atmosphere. As the person involved, I also reported it to the police right away. So the two of them were jumping up and down in the live streaming room, like clowns, and after talking for 5 minutes, they were taken away in front of so many people in the live streaming room. My team and I seized the opportunity and directed all the onlookers to the company's account before their live streaming room was banned. I don't even know where Sophie found such a streamer for me. While satisfying the audience's desire to listen to gossip in the chat, she also managed to sneak in promotions for our company's products. The live content was engaging, and the pricing was reasonable. The volume of transactions throughout the night silenced the board of directors who had previously criticized me. After all, everyone gathered here to make money, and now that the money has been made, there is no need to argue and waste unnecessary time. 3 months later, the verdict for Miles and Lena was announced. Jung Group was officially declared bankrupt, and all assets were auctioned off to repay debts. I stood at the courthouse entrance, the sunlight glaring brightly. Sophie handed me a cup of milk tea. Feeling better? I took a sip. Damn, it was iced. Not bad, at least the money can be recovered. Money is nothing, Sophie rolled her eyes, you actually saved your life. I smiled and put my arm around her shoulder. Come on, let me treat you to a meal. This time I'll pay, with my own money.